The muscle, the key muscle that is causing your leg length inequality and maybe even your sciatica, coming up next. There is one large outer hip muscle that when it's short and tight on one side, it's going to be long and tight on the other side, and it is a direct cause of a leg length inequality. So if you're having sciatica or low back pain or iliotibial band pain or a whole bunch of the symptoms of sciatica that might not even be considered full-blown sciatica, but sometimes you get iliotibial band pain or sometimes you get weakness in that hip, you are going to want to look at your gluteus medius and give it some loving attention. So here's the thing. Gluteus medius is the largest of the outer hip muscles. These muscles are known as the abductors, abductors. They lift the legs away from each other. Now, along with glute min, gluteus medius covers the side of the hip socket, and it has a strong pull pulling the pelvis down toward the femur. So when the pelvis stays and the muscle's called to action, the femur is lifted out to the side, or you lift your leg out to the side. When the hips and the femur is steady, the glute min and glute med will contract and stabilize that femur in the socket, which is why I call them the rotator cuff of the hip. The thing is, glute med is a very strong muscle. It has a very strong pull. And because we use the two sides of our bodies differently, because we sit with one leg crossed over the other often, or because we tend to stand with our weight over to one side, we can get stuck in tilting our pelvis, and over time the body just goes, oh, okay, this is what we do. So one glute med is going to get stuck short, the other is going to get stuck long. Then you're going to be told by a chiropractor or a doctor or an osteopath, oh, you have a leg length inequality. Maybe even your massage therapist has told you this. Oh, your right leg is shorter than your left or longer. Oh, your pelvis is off. One hip sits higher than the other. Oh, or you go see a chiropractor and they're like, yeah, your hips are off. I'm going to have to adjust your lower lumbar. Well, adjusting the lower lumbar is going to help get things back in alignment. But if you don't address the trigger points in key muscles, especially in gluteus medius, it's just going to go right back. Sometimes as you're driving away from the chiropractor's office, you just spend $50 or $75 or $100 or whatever. You're driving away and your body goes because the muscles have it in their system. This is how we do it. This is how we do it. So by releasing gluteus medius, and you always want to start with the low hip side. So let's say your right hip sits lower than the left. This would be your left hip side of your pelvis. This would be the right side of your pelvis. Let's say the right hip sits lower. That glute med and glute min have pulled that right side of the pelvis down, effectively pushing the left side up. So other symptoms of gluteus medius trigger points are general sciatica symptoms, weakness in the hip, restless legs is a huge piece of the puzzle. It could be just that you've been told you have a leg length inequality. So you want to get very clear which hip is sitting high. Then you want to start your release work on the low hip side. So I'm going to include some release work for you to do. You can release gluteus medius. The easiest way is at the wall because you have a very easy way to adjust the pressure, shift the angle, because self-trigger point release work is very specific and you want to be 90 degrees to those trigger points. So stick around. Here's a video on how to release your gluteus medius, help get you out of sciatica pain, help level your pelvis, help get the legs back in line with each other, and get yourself free. Next up, we're going to release gluteus medius at the wall. And if you've never done this work before, I do recommend that you start with that soft logo ball. Just You start with the softball, especially as you are exploring, and then you can use the larger myofoam ball as the second step, and then sort of graduate level rolling would be using that small myofoam ball. It's going to be so specific, and it might be a little rough on your tissue to begin with this until your body is more used to the very specific self-trigger point release. So we're going to start with the softball, and then we can switch to the bigger ball. I'm going to do the whole first side with the softer ball and the second side with the larger ball. So let's go. We're going to start on the left side. And so the gluteus medius holds its points up at that top rim of the pelvis. So you just find your sacrum in the middle. It's that flat bone in the middle of your pelvis that ends right at the top of where the buttock separation begins. And you're going to place the ball just off to the side. Now that pelvis curves around toward the front, so you will have to turn your body a little bit. And then if you step your feet about a wider than hip distance apart, just step your feet a little bit separate, and then shift your weight from side to side. And that's going to bring that ball across the top rim of the pelvis. So see how high I am up here. This gluteus medius, right? This is how high I am. I'm not down here in the butt. I'm not in the low back. I'm right at that top rim of the pelvis. So you can sink in, get right next to the sacrum and the top of the pelvis, and then sink your body down in. And after you've done that little bit of back and forth, side to side, that's sinking the body in. Ooh, just really allows the ball to get into the tissue. And take a couple of deep breaths right down here in the belly. And then after that first spot, you just step your weight to the back foot a little bit so the ball slides a little forward, bend the knees a little bit more, top rim of the pelvis, second point, gluteus medius, second point. That's tender in there. And then for the third point, we move the ball down just slightly and then get toward the out. Now I'm not perpendicular to the wall. I'm turned just slightly behind perpendicular to the wall. And I might, you can explore up and down, circling a little bit right there, gluteus medius with the logo ball, the soft ball. So good. And then with gluteus medius, we're going to do a little stretch where you just step that back leg behind so the leg we just rolled is the left hip. We're going to step that leg behind the right leg, do a little side bend. It's more about bending that front knee so that we stretch this outer hip. That's one way to do it. Now we're going to do the second side, and for this one we're going to use that larger myofoam ball. So again, how do we begin? Here's the sacrum, top rim of the pelvis. We're going to be riding up high. Here's the gluteus medius. We're not down here in the buttocks. Once again, we're right up here at the SI joint. So if I were straight against the wall, I wouldn't be on it. I have to turn my body about 45 degrees, step the feet a little apart so that we can cruise forward and back along that top rim of the pelvis. Checking by the sacrum. You can kind of circle around, move a little slowly, sink into the tissue, isolate a real tender spot right next to the sacrum, and take a couple of deep breaths in the belly. Great. And then we come around toward the front a little bit. You can go slightly up and down by bending and straightening the knees, just kind of checking it out, sinking in. If you're having trouble finding a tender spot, remember to stop moving and just allow your body to sink in a little bit. Great. And then the last point, just 3 points. It's right near that last one. Just come a little bit more toward the outer hip. Scoot the ball down a little. You could, again, do the up and down by bending the knees and straightening the legs and just kind of going up and down there. And then finding that last tender spot just before perpendicular to the wall, just in front of that tender, riding way up high. You got to be up high on the rim of the pelvis. Couple of breaths. Relax your jaw, soften your eyes. You want to just keep softening your nervous system. Relax as many parts of your body as you can, especially the jaw and the eyes. Because if you tense the jaw and open your eyes wide, tense the eyes, that sends a signal to your nervous system that there's stress and that it's going to recontract those muscles. So everything kind of gets hanging and loose. And then we go back through, check in that gluteus medius. Last couple of moments here. Great, and then we're going to do our gluteus medius stretch, where we take that right leg now, step it behind the left, step the left foot across, bend the left knee. You can add a little side bend too, but really we're just trying to open that spot. Left knee bends forward, right leg is straight, stretching that space on the side of the hip and the back of the glutes. Great. So that's releasing gluteus medius at the wall.